I want to talk about the end of the Andor series and what it does to Bix as a character. I think it makes her incredibly selfish and immoral. Whether or not you think it's in character or that the fact that it worked out in the end justifies it is irrelevant to me. I actually think it was the lesser written option as well. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people who are critical of Andor often resort to it's boring, which isn't really helpful. Or they like the show so much that if you criticize it, they just say it's too nuanced for you and you lack media literacy.
I'm not just like the rest of you. I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm better.
And this will be a lot more calm than my rant was in my Arc 4 video when I was just pissed off about it because I feel like some kind of alien where no one else has agreed with me outside of that Star Wars girl and a couple commenters. The explanation that we're given by Bix's character arc and motivation is partially that she prioritizes the rebellion because of what the Empire has done to her throughout the show, and she understands that her presence there is distracting to Cassian to the point where he's willing to leave the rebellion for her. He's willing to try to sideline missions for her. And the rebellion has become so important to her at this point that she's willing to break up with Cassian so that he can focus solely on the rebellion. We also get vague hints of her having some sort of belief in a greater cause. And this all leads to her decision to leave Cassian and kind of force his hand in prioritizing the rebellion over her. That as a decision, I don't particularly mind. It fits her character. If two people are in a relationship, one of them has the right to make that decision, whether or not you think it's stupid or whatever. But as soon as she knows she's pregnant, which is unclear if she knew before or after she left, that decision is no longer solely hers to make. And I feel like if this was any other circumstance, more people would be calling her out for being a terrible fucking person. At this point, Cassian deserves to know that he's a father, and it's his choice to make about what path he wants to take. And also, this is, to me, the more weakly written option, because Cassian has been pretty resistant and kind of dragged along the entire show, and very willing to lead the rebellion for Bix all along the way. And you just had the massacre at Gorman, he just saved Mon Mothma from being silenced in the Senate for speaking against the government. I think this would be a very good time story-wise and in a sort of tragically ironic way for him to choose to join the rebellion over leaving with Bix. It would have been very easy for her to tell him at this point in the story, hey, I'm pregnant, what are we going to do? And even though he's been begging her to leave the rebellion all the time, he's willing to throw missions away for her, this could have been his hero moment where he decides, finally, I need to fight for the future of you and our kid. And after he's seen Gorman and everything else, he's just had enough and realizes where his priorities have to be, even if it isn't what he really wants. I mean, this is kind of a pretty classic trope for heroes where they have to choose between the person they love and the bigger picture. And typically your hero chooses the bigger picture because it's the right thing to do, and that's what it means to sacrifice and be a hero. You can think of the literal trolley problem in the Spider-Man movie if you'd like. Maybe you could think of something like Schindler's List, where he gives up a pretty affluent life and puts himself in danger to help Jewish people because it's the right thing to do. There's a million examples of this, and it's pretty standard protagonist behavior. And the fact that they threw all of this away just because they wanted themes at the end of hope in the future is just really annoying to me, because Andor has been a really disciplined show when it comes to restraint and having the characters make pretty logical decisions. And if you want to say this is within Bix's logic and character and acknowledge that her character is a selfish, immoral asshole, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable to portray her as morally correct and have that kind of reveal at the end where Cassian fought and died for a kid that he wasn't even aware of. To be clear, the fact that Andor had a pivotal role in helping get the Death Star plans to the rebellion, which obviously led to the rebellion blowing up the Death Star and blah, 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 that doesn't justify it. If someone tells you they went to the bar and had 15 beers and then drove home, and you told them they were a fucking idiot, and they responded, well, I got home safely and everything's fine, who cares? You would still acknowledge it as a bad decision just because it worked out doesn't change that. And I would actually go so far as to say that even if Bix knew the future, she still wouldn't have the right to make that decision and just take away all of Cassian's agency. And I think the idea that she was motivated by some belief that Cassian is part of the bigger picture, so that also justifies her decision, is insane to me. If Rogue One didn't exist, which, spoiler, she hasn't watched it, I don't think anyone would have the position that they have that what she did was okay. And even if you were to make that concession that it was a part of her motivation, it's pretty weakly done. We essentially get one episode and a couple pretty brief conversations where the Force is vaguely referenced and there's some kind of galactic karma or something. And it's never really expanded on beyond that. For all the things that Andor did right, where they chose to spend some of their time, I found really baffling this season. And I know they cut 5 seasons of story down to 2, but it was their choice to try to cover 4 years in 4 arcs. And these conversations about the bigger picture and the future and blah, 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 all could have started on the farm planet and at least been throughout the season, even if they didn't want to dedicate a ton of time to them. But what we got was frankly the equivalent of a chick dating a guy, getting pregnant, and realizing that she was a Pisces and he was an Aquarius, and it just wasn't going to work out because her sign said so for that month. In my initial rant about this, I used the word kidnapping. I don't know what the word would be for a situation like this, where she hasn't actually had the child yet. Because if the kid had been born and she took him, or Cassian took the kid away, kidnapping would be pretty easily digestible, I think. But I'm not sure people conceptualize a pregnant lady hiding her pregnancy the same way. Because if everything had stayed the same with this show, where Cassian wanted a family, Bix prioritized the rebellion, but you slightly altered the story where Bix already had the kid on Yavin, and Cassian went to the Gorman massacre, saved Mon Mothma, and then just took the kid and ran away, or lied to Bix that the child had passed away and then he just disappeared with the kid, I don't think there'd be a single person in the world defending it. And it's pretty wild to me to hear people say that actually she's the one who made the sacrifice.
Better life because of what Andor and the other rebels accomplished, that Andor sacrificed himself for a future that he would never see, but that, you know, lives on through what is his family that he doesn't get to share in the life with.
No, he doesn't necessarily know about either, which is the interesting part of that, because it places a huge amount of weight on the amount of faith that Bix has in this sort of grander scheme of things. Because it could be conceived as a pretty, even shocking decision to go away knowing you're pregnant without telling the father, and in order that he can go and carry on fighting. But that means that scene with the Force healer is one of her most important scenes, because that's the one that sort of gives you this quite definite sense that she does have a grander awareness of even in vague terms, where this is going to go next. This has to happen in order for Andor to do his job properly. And his job is so important that he can't be allowed even to be distracted by his own family. It could be construed as selfish, but it could equally be construed as like ultimate sacrifice, even if it's sacrifice that she's kind of making for him.
When Andor went and fought and died, all while not knowing what happened to Bix or that he even had a child because of something that she believed in without telling him. And it's just so gross to me that she tricked him into making a decision that he wouldn't have made and died for it, and people are defending her. And this is not a route that I'm going to go down, but I do feel like it speaks in part to how little people actually value men and fathers, because there's no fucking way that if a woman got tricked and lied to about her kid to make a decision that she didn't want to make and went off and died because of it, that it would ever be portrayed as anything but villainous behavior. I'm not going to compare Bix to Scar from The Lion King, but I'm certainly fucking thinking it. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. I don't want to belabor the point. I'm making this video partially because I am frustrated that no one else has made it that I've seen. And also, I just don't understand where this disconnect is, that every person on the internet loves this moment and just no one gives a shit how they got there. Especially for the Andor fans who, by and large, at least based on my comments, have no problems being condescending and telling you that you don't understand the story or you just don't get it when such a fundamental thing happened on screen and every single one is defending it. If you've seen the show and this whole thing, let me know what you think. I try to respond to the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.